The galaxy knew Queen Zuthara as the unbonded monarch, ruler of the Lathari dominion, born of crystal blood and ancient fire. Among her people, bonding was sacred, a merging of minds and instincts meant only for equals. Zuthara had sworn before the star altars that she would never bond. Her predecessors had fallen to weakness through attachment, and she would not repeat their failures. She ruled alone, sharp-minded and unyielding. Then humanity arrived. The humans were not conquerors at first, nor diplomats of grace. They were survivors, scarred and stubborn, pushing outward from a broken homeworld. When border wars ignited, the Lathari fleets crushed human colonies without hesitation. Zuthara watched their defeat from her obsidian throne, expecting surrender. Instead, she saw resistance. On the battlefield of Ker's Rift, a single human battalion held against overwhelming force. Sensor feeds showed one warrior at the center, armor shattered, biosigns spiking beyond normal limits. He fought not with elegance, but with relentless refusal to fall. Each time he should have died, he rose again, dragging others with him. Zuthara felt something then. Not attraction, not curiosity, but recognition. A predator acknowledging another predator. She dismissed it as fatigue and ordered orbital annihilation. Yet when the firestorm cleared, that warrior's signal was gone, not destroyed but vanished. For the first time in centuries, the unbonded queen felt unease. His name was Captain Elias Vun. He had been born on a mining moon and raised among gravity storms and metal dust. War had taken everything from him except purpose. When Ker's Rift fell, Elias was buried beneath molten debris and alien corpses. But humans were difficult to kill. Lathari recovery drones found him days later, still breathing, still conscious. When he awoke in a containment chamber, his first instinct was not fear, but assessment. Walls, energy field, guards, weaknesses. Zuthara observed from behind mirrored crystal, studying the human closely. He did not beg. He did not scream. He met captivity with the same defiant calm he had shown in battle. When she finally entered the chamber, the air itself seemed to tighten. Elias looked at her, bloodied and exhausted, and still straightened his spine. "You are the one who ordered the strike," he said. "Not a question." Zuthara felt the bond sense stir, a dormant instinct flaring alive. She silenced it with discipline. "I am the one who ended your war," she replied. He smiled then, faint and humorless. "Not yet." No prisoner had ever spoken to her that way. No being had ever looked at her without fear or reverence. The vow echoed in her mind, unbroken, unchallenged. And yet something had already shifted. Days passed, then cycles. Zuthara questioned Elias herself, bypassing interrogators and neural extractors. She wanted to understand him, not dissect him. He spoke of Earth, of loss, of soldiers who kept fighting because stopping meant extinction. There was no prophecy in his words, no divine destiny, only choice. "We fight because we decide to," he told her. That answer unsettled her more than any threat. Lathari believed strength was inherited, ordained by the stars. Humans believed strength was forged. During one session, an assassin drone malfunctioned, its core overloading. Before guards could react, Elias tore free of his restraints and shielded Zuthara with his own body. The explosion ripped through the chamber, throwing them apart. When Zuthara rose from the wreckage, uninjured, she saw Elias broken and burning. Yet still alive. Still breathing. The bond ignited without consent, without ritual, without permission. She felt his pain, his fury, his stubborn will clawing back from death. The vow shattered like glass. She screamed, not in fear, but in surrender. The Lathari court erupted in outrage. A queen bonded to a human was heresy. The elders demanded Elia's execution and Zothoa's abdication. She refused both. For the first time, she ruled not by tradition, but by conviction. Through the bond, she learned humanity not as an enemy, but as a force of will. Elias learned her thoughts, her loneliness, the burden of eternal command. They were not equal in form, but they were equal in resolve. When the elders attempted a coup, it was Elias who stood beside her on the throne platform. Unarmed, unarmored, unyielding. "Tell them," he said. "Tell them what happens when you push humanity too far." Zothoa did not threaten. She simply opened the bond, letting the court feel the human spirit raging within her. The rebellion collapsed in silence. The war ended not with annihilation, but with union. Humanity and the Lathari formed an alliance bound by shared strength, not dominance. Queen Zothoa never reclaimed her vow. She did not regret breaking it. Through Elias, she learned that bonds were not chains, but amplifiers. Together, they stood at the edge of the stars. Two species once destined for extinction, now shaping a new era. The galaxy would remember her as the queen who swore never to bond, and the human warrior who proved that some vows are meant to be broken. The bond did not settle quietly. It was not a gentle harmony sung into balance by time. It was a storm. Zothoa felt Elias even when he slept, his dreams bleeding into her awareness. She saw ruined cities under alien skies, heard human screams echoing through collapsing hulls. Elias felt her in return, the endless responsibility of ruling an ancient species pressing on his chest like gravity. Neither of them spoke of it at first. They endured. The alliance between humanity and the Lathari was fragile, balanced on fear rather than trust. Human admirals saw Zothoa as a tyrant-playing benevolent ruler. Lathari nobles saw Elias as a parasite bound to their queen's mind. When border systems erupted into chaos, both sides blamed the other. Pirate coalitions and rogue fleets tested the alliance relentlessly. Each skirmish threatened to unravel everything they had built. Zothoa convened the first joint war council in galactic history. The chamber itself resisted the idea, crystal walls humming in agitation as humans entered. Elias stood at her side, feeling every hostile glance like a blade against his skin. A human general questioned her authority openly. A Lathari elder questioned Elias' right to breathe within the chamber. The tension rose until it became nearly unbearable. Then Elias stepped forward. "We don't trust each other," he said. "That's true. But trust comes after survival. Right now we either stand together or we die separately." His words were not poetic. They were honest. And honesty carried weight. Zothoa felt pride ripple through the bond, sharp and undeniable. She spoke next, her voice carrying across frequencies and cultures. "The galaxy is watching us fracture," she said. "Let them watch us endure instead." Reluctantly, grudgingly, the council agreed. The first joint operation followed weeks later. A rogue armada armed with stolen Lithari weapons threatened both territories. Human tactics met Lithari firepower in a single coordinated strike. Elias commanded from the bridge of a human dreadnought. Zothoa guided the fleet through quantum folds with flawless precision. Through the bond, they moved as one mind, anticipating each other without words. The victory was decisive. But it came at a cost. Elias was injured during the final boarding action, shrapnel tearing through armor and flesh. Zothoa felt the wound as if it were her own. For the first time in her long life, fear took root. She abandoned protocol and appeared in the human medbay, ignoring stunned personnel. When Elias saw her, pale and shaking, he smiled weakly. "Guess I'm still hard to kill," he murmured. She gripped his hand without hesitation. "Do not do this again," she commanded. Her voice trembled. "I cannot rule without you." The admission shocked them both. The galaxy did not change overnight. Prejudice does not dissolve simply because history demands it. But it bent slowly under pressure. Years passed, marked not by war but by rebuilding. Human engineers reshaped shattered Lithari worlds. Lithari science lifted human colonies from the brink of collapse. Zythera and Elias became symbols whether they wished it or not. Some called them abominations. Others called them hope. When assassins struck again, this time human extremists seeking to sever the bond, Elias survived only because Zythera felt the danger moments before it happened. She crossed half a system in a single jump to reach him, annihilating the attackers without mercy. The galaxy learned then that the Queen's wrath was not diminished by love. It was sharpened. In private moments, they spoke of impossible things. A future without constant war. A galaxy where strength was not measured solely by dominance. Elias aged while Zythera did not. The bond slowed his decline, but could not halt it forever. He knew this. She knew it. Neither spoke of it until the stars forced the truth into the open. When Elias finally stood on the balcony overlooking the twin capitals, his breath shallow but his eyes clear, Zythera stood beside him, holding him as she would hold the fate of her people. "You broke my vow," she said softly. He smiled, lines etched deep by time and battle. "You let it break." When the day came that Elias could no longer rise, the galaxy held its breath. Zythera remained with him until the end, sharing memories, sharing silence, sharing everything the bond allowed. When he was gone, she did not scream. She endured. The bond did not vanish with his death. It remained, etched into her mind and soul. A reminder that even queens are shaped by those they choose to stand beside. Centuries later, children of both species would learn the story. Of the alien queen who swore she would never bond, and the human warrior who taught her that strength multiplied when shared. That love did not weaken rulers. It redefined them. And somewhere between the stars, the echo of a human will and an alien crown continued to shape the fate of the galaxy. Time moved differently for Queen Zythera after Elias Vaughn was gone. Centuries passed, yet the bond remained a constant presence, no longer a voice but a resonance. It was like standing beside an extinguished star whose gravity still shaped the heavens. The Lithari dominion endured. So did humanity. Together they expanded not as conquerors, but as architects of balance. Worlds once reduced to ash became gardens of crystal and steel. Trade routes replaced war corridors. Children of mixed heritage were born beneath twin suns, bearing traits of both fire and flesh. Zythera watched them from her throne and felt something dangerously close to peace. Yet peace never arrives without cost. Beyond the mapped galaxy, something ancient had stirred. An intelligence older than both species, older than the stars they worshipped. The first signs were subtle. Stars dimmed without explanation. Entire systems fell silent, not destroyed but emptied. Scouts vanished. Signals returned hollow, stripped of meaning. The galaxy whispered of a devourer that erased not matter, but intent. The Lithari elders urged caution. Human councils urged preemptive action. All eyes turned once more to the unbonded queen, who had broken every rule and survived. Zythera felt the threat before the reports confirmed it. The echo of Elias within her stirred, restless, alert. Where he had once stood against annihilation, she now stood alone. She convened the Grand Assembly, a gathering unseen since the First Alliance. Representatives of dozens of species filled the vast chamber. Fear was universal, language was not. When Zythera rose to speak, the hall fell into silence. She did not invoke titles. She did not invoke destiny. She spoke instead of choice. Long ago, she said, I believed strength was isolation. I believed bonds weakened rulers. I was wrong. The galaxy stands today because we chose to endure together. She paused, feeling the weight of Elia's memory steady her resolve. What comes now will test us beyond fleets and weapons. This enemy erases will itself. To face it, we must become more than allied. We must become united. The assembly agreed not with cheers, but with grim acceptance. Preparation began immediately. Human tacticians developed doctrines designed to fight an enemy that could not be intimidated. Lithari scientists devised resonance shields inspired by the psychic architecture of the bond itself. Other species contributed in ways only they could. Zythera oversaw it all, tireless, relentless. Yet in quiet moments, she walked alone through the gardens of memory. There stood a simple monument, not crystal, not gold, but human stone. It bore a single inscription. Elias Vaughn. He endured. When the devourer finally arrived, it did not announce itself with fire. It came as absence, a void where causality unraveled. Ships that entered its influence drifted aimlessly, crews alive but purposeless. The first battle was a disaster. Weapons passed through the entity without effect. Commands dissolved into confusion. Fleets broke formation not from fear, but from forgetting why they fought. Zythera felt the void reach for her mind. It brushed against the bond's echo and recoiled. For the first time, the enemy hesitated. She understood then. This thing fed on isolation, on the erosion of meaning. It could not consume what was shared. Zythera made a decision that would redefine existence itself. She ordered the activation of the harmonic network, a lattice of linked minds across species built upon the principles of her bond with Elias. Millions hesitated. To open one's mind was to invite vulnerability. To trust was to risk annihilation. Zythera opened herself first. She did not shield her thoughts. She did not filter her pain. She shared everything. The centuries of rule. The loss of Elias. The love that had reshaped her soul. Human minds answered first. Then Lothari. Then others. Fear met courage, grief met resolve. The network ignited. A galaxy thinking not as individuals, but as a chorus. The devourer screamed. Not in sound, but in collapse. Its void fractured under the weight of shared purpose. It could not erase what was willingly connected. When the threat finally dissipated, it left behind no wreckage. Only silence. And then relief. The harmonic network was dismantled immediately. No one wished to live forever exposed. But something had changed permanently. The galaxy would never again believe that strength was solitary. Zythera returned to her throne, older not in body but in spirit. She knew her reign would one day end. Even queens of crystal and fire were not eternal. She began proposing a successor. Not by bloodline, not by species, but by merit. A young hybrid stood out among the candidates. Brilliant, compassionate, unyielding. Bearing within them echoes of both human defiance and Lothari clarity. On the day Zythera stepped down, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. She placed the crown not upon her own kind, but upon the future she had helped create. As she walked away from the throne, she felt the echo stir once more. Not as memory, but as peace. She returned to the gardens of memory one final time. sat beside the stone that bore Elia's name, and allowed herself to rest. The galaxy would remember many things. The wars, the alliances, the devourer that nearly erased them all. But above all, it would remember this, that an alien queen once swore she would never bond, that a human warrior endured when extinction demanded surrender, and that together, even across death and centuries, they taught the stars how to hold fast against the void.